Many thanks indeed, Rick. It's great to hear our view about the challenges we face, and a reminder of the end of the day, who's buying the product. And as a fresh market grower, Rick, I can tell you I spend a lot of time in stores. I spend a lot of time with my customers, doing my best to make sure that I know where it's going. And sometimes that experience does remind you of what you're trying to do. But then the weather comes along and throws you off course again, and it's very frustrating. I'd like to welcome now the chairman of SIP, Dr. Peter VanderZaag. And at last we can have a focus away from Western nations and our developed retail consumers, and hear more about the work of SIP. Thank you very much, Peter.
Thank you, Alan. I have the dubious honor of being the last speaker of the day and of the conference. And I look at the sign that your slogan is think global, win local. So I want to start off, my presentation really will be about thinking global. And at the end of the day, my goal is that we'll also be winning globally. That's my goal for my presentation to you this morning, or this afternoon. I want to start off by saying that I'm a potato farmer from Ontario in Canada, but also have worked with SIP as a scientist back in the late 70s and 80s and early 90s, and now serve as the chair of the board of SIP. We also have in the audience here today Dr. Pamela Anderson, a Director General, and Dr. Paolo Donini, our Deputy Director General for Research. And Dr. Paul Demo is here someplace as well, who is one of our scientists working in Africa. So we are well represented with also some alumni of SIP, and Jim Godfrey, our former board chair, is here as well. Dr. Hubert Zanstra, Dr. Anton Havercourt. There's probably others. SIP was established 40 years ago in Lima, Peru, 41 years ago to be exact. SIP is part of the CGIAR, which is the Consultative Group for International Agricultural Research, which includes 15 international centers that do development work, research for development work around the globe, including the major cereals. You heard that Dr. Colin Charters was here yesterday from the Water Institute, and others. SIP is based in Peru because of the diversity of the potato, which has its origins really in the highlands of Peru and Bolivia. SIP started off as a center that was working on potatoes, and in the late 80s added sweet potatoes to its mandate. Yesterday, Dr. Sir Bennington really profiled sweet potatoes well in his presentation. What is SIP all about? If I can just summarize it very quickly, SIP's vision are roots and tubers improving the lives of the poor, and SIP's mission is really all about food security, poverty alleviation, through research, through innovation, through capacity strengthening. And SIP's mandate is a truly global mandate. SIP works in countries on the major continents that are in the developing world, in Asia, Africa, South America, and even beyond. Our budget approximately is $40 million a year, which is given by many Western country donors, some foundations, and others as well. What has SIP's impact been over the last 41 years? And I say SIP's impact, SIP has been really a catalyst to work with many national programs. And as we look at the trends, we've heard about that already from previous speakers. The developing world potato production has increased tremendously over the last 40 years. The developing world is on a slightly downward trend, and even if you look at these numbers are already old, and the trend continues with rapid growth of potatoes in the developing world. And SIP's role has been really one of raising the profile, of training, of doing basic research, of collaborative research with national programs, of utilizing the germplasm from the Andean mountains for developing improved varieties in the different ecosystems of our planet. Why have we seen these impressive growth trends in the developing world? First, I want to stress that there have been some very strong national programs that have helped make this happen. I think of India as one example of a program that has had a very strong national potato program, which is huge, diversified, and has worked effectively for probably 40-some years across the different ecological zones of India, and has had a tremendous impact. We see the same in Latin America. In China, for example, CIP started collaborating with China in 1978. In 1985, we established our CIP office in Beijing. And the Chinese would tell us that that was the key point that helped China formulate a national potato program and to catalyze it to move forward to develop a program that would really raise the profile and have an effective way of doing R&D for the country. We have distributed a lot of germplasm to many countries around the world. We've been involved with seed systems, cropping systems. I think of the rice-based cropping systems in the subcontinent of Asia, crop rotations with rice and with wheat. Potatoes has proven to be a very flexible crop. You can harvest whenever you need. A good cash crop. And now more and more we see it even as a fast food crop in the developing world. So, what are the opportunities in the developing world for the potato as we speak today and as we look ahead? On average, the per capita consumption of potato in the developing world is still low. Peru maybe has about 80 kilograms per person per year, China 44. But most countries are less than that. So there's room for more potato in the diet. We've heard it at this conference, and we know that the potato is a very efficient producer of energy and protein and vitamins per unit of land, per unit of water, per unit of sunlight. It's a flexible crop in the cropping systems. We've raised the image of the potato. Think of the Chinese cookbook that has hundreds of recipes in it just to promote the potato, and the dishes that Jen Li Ping showed this morning are just an example of how we've raised the profile of the crop, and this is an opportunity for increased consumption and also then increased production. Nutrition and health are key, and we believe that's key with potato as well. However, we are still dealing with a planet that has a problem. There are over 1 billion people still hungry who go to bed every night with not enough food in their stomachs. Mark Linus this morning talked about how it has come down tremendously. But if you take away the China, 500 million from China, we still are left with a huge problem in other parts of Asia, over 100 million still in China, go to Africa as well as in the Andes of South America. The problem still exists, acute poverty. Sir Beddington yesterday showed very clearly that between price spikes and a shortage of food, there will be unrest, civil unrest. And we've seen those spikes in 07, 08, and again in 2010 and 11. So we have a problem. Mike Story asked me to speak because I was a farmer, as well as having had this international experience. And my heart really goes with the 500 million small farmers on our planet today. They involve in total about 2.4 billion people on these small family farms, and they feed 70% of the world's population. And many of these farmers grow potatoes, and those are the ones we must help. How do we support these small farmers? These small farmers are human beings just like you and I. And they and their communities want support for stabilizing their rural culture, their roads, their schools, their hospitals, their infrastructure. They desire and want appropriate and sustainable farming resources. They need quality seed of improved varieties. They might need credit. They will need orderly marketing and storage. And I want to share with you now several examples of how this can be done and how CIP is in fact working with national partners in making this happen. I want to share first my experiences in Inner Mongolia, in northern China. I started going there back in 1985, where there were lots of rural communities with incredible poverty. This picture was taken last year. There are still some who farm poor seed, poor quality crops. This is a lady of about 80 years of age out hoeing her field. In Inner Mongolia, the Chinese have taken a very aggressive approach and moved people out of the countryside and allowed large farming to take over. This picture is one you see of the transformation that's taken place in Inner Mongolia. The manager of this farm on your right is with us today. Large pivot irrigation, growing the variety Shepherdy for McCain's or somebody else, but this is a large-scale, dramatic change that's taken place in Inner Mongolia. This shift has brought people from the rural communities into the cities for industrial work or whatever it may be, and high investment farming has taken over. But this scenario is not possible and often not feasible in the developing world. Going now to the mountains of southwest China. Rugged terrain in places that are very remote. Here we see the small farmer who has benefited from SIP's partnership with national programs. And infrastructure has been developed through roads, community irrigation project was instituted to give water to this valley, orderly marketing, they get cash on the spot as they sell their potatoes. A new SIP generated variety is grown by them, and they have a good seed production system in that area. And this has allowed people like this to survive and grow and prosper their families, to raise their children. And I jokingly asked them if they're going to see the Great Wall of China someday, and they smiled. I want to share with you an example from Africa, in Kenya. I was in Kenya in April, and we traveled around Mount Kenya to the north side to visit a farm where a large-scale commercial farmer who grows wheat, roses for export, and potatoes. Here with aeroponics, they're producing the basic seed. And aeroponics has been a unique way in that part of Africa to avoid the problem of bacterial wilt, a soil-borne disease that plays havoc with seed production. It's also a rapid way to do this. And here on this farm, the poster is actually in the poster session. We see Derek Rolston working with Kasima Farms Ltd. Actually, he's an Irish potato farmer, seed grower, who as a missionary works in that part of Africa to not only grow the basic seed on that farm through aeroponics and 2 generations in the field, but then goes and helps the rural community in that vicinity of that farm to help the rural people in their work. In the background is 2nd and 3rd generation potatoes grown from aeroponics. Just to show you that the SIP team that visited there to see the work was very impressed. And then that seed that's produced by the Kasima farm is then sold and distributed to local farmers, such as this lady here and her husband. And through this project, commercial large farmer working for the betterment of the community is working with small farmers such as her and her husband to grow basic seed, another generation, for distribution to other farmers or groups of farmers like this, who then you see dramatic improvements in their yields and their profitability, and hence the community is better off. Just want to highlight South Asia a little bit. I spent some time initially I worked in Bangladesh. Very different situation again, very much a crop of potatoes growing after rice during the dry season. But here too we see farmers who have done tremendously well in growing potatoes. Rural culture has remained strong. Seed production has been provided to the government and different agencies. Cold storage facilities are in place. And hence farmers can grow potatoes to not only feed themselves, but also feed their communities at large. I want to share with you now a little bit about what's happening in Peru. First of all, the genetic resources at SIP are very, very rich. SIP has a large gene bank with over 4,000 native varieties. All the Andean wild species are collected at SIP, and this gene pool has a great resource, not only for the developing world, but also for the developed world. We've seen pictures of this nature before, but these are all indeed potatoes. And this diversity offers not only health and nutrition, it also it offers exotic types of potatoes, incredible taste, biotic and abiotic stress resistances could be found in this gene pool as well. But what's really been amazing is in Peru how through a program that was started of Papa Andina, how this is really a program that was started in Bolivia, Peru, and Ecuador, of a value chain of working from farmers in farmers' fields all the way down to the market, to cooking, to selling the crop, has really been a real godsend to help the poor farmers and those in those very poor mountainous communities to have a better life. Through training of people, through raising the profile, through dealing with research wherever there was bottlenecks, through cuisine chef schools like you see here on the lower left, all of this has raised the profile of the potato, has raised the per capita consumption in those countries, and has made the potato a major contributor to food security in that part of the world. Having said that, the job is not finished, but it certainly is going in the right direction. And just to show you the diversity of potatoes in the markets of Peru, how rich and how diverse, how colorful, and how tasty and nutritious they are. And even this has gone further to where large chip companies have used these exotic potatoes also for making chips for local use and even for export to Europe and other places. Very colorful chips, very tasty chips, again, that benefit small farmers who grow them to help them with improving their livelihood, and at the same time helping the company that produces these chips to also have benefits as well. I want to just share another example of how our SIP's genetic resources has impacted the world through improved varieties. I want to share you with this story from southwestern China. Here's a mother with her daughter and her daughter-in-law harvesting potatoes along with her husband and her son and growing potatoes and harvesting them. This variety that was developed here, which is called Cooperation 88, comes from SIP and indigenous germplasm primarily. But it has been adapted and it shows durable resistance to late blight, and it has become a major variety of over 400,000 hectares grown in that part of China. And because of its beauty as far as appearance, it has become an exotic kind of tourist attraction. In the airport, you'll find this for sale as the potatoes, and it's not called potatoes, it's called by the varietal name, as for sale for tourists to pick up and buy and take with them on the airplane. So this has just become like a new phenomena where the potato has become a major economic contributor to the well-being of those people in these valleys of remote parts of southwest China. And this variety has become also a major trading commodity going down to the neighboring countries within that part of Asia, including Burma, Thailand, Vietnam, Laos. So this gives you a glimpse of what SIP is doing with its germplasm, with its strategy for helping rural communities improve their lot in their various parts of the world. I'll just give you a few glimpses. But now I want to really come to the challenge before you as a group. On Sunday, my wife and I were walking through town, and we went to a little shop. And there I found this little ration book. This ration book was published and was used in 1944 and 1945. Also, I came across this little book here about wartime cookery, right here in Edinburgh. This little ration book really highlighted for me the acute food shortages that were being experienced right here in this city during that time. And it just reminded me that only 1.5 to 2 generations ago, you experienced incredible hardship and food insecurity right here. And wartime cooking was all about how not to have any waste, how not to throw the water away, how to be careful with what you did with how to cook things, sequentially even. But we have the same situation now in our world today. And the question is, how are we here, we've eaten well, we are doing well with our businesses, how are we going to respond to the disparity that exists before us? And I call this our corporate social responsibility. We heard several speakers talk about philanthropy, but I really challenge you to think about how can we be ones who are citizens of this world who will be willing to help those who have much less than we do. Not only for the well-being of our planet as a whole, but also just to think of these people as being human beings just like you and I. We have a corporate social responsibility, and we must respond to those needs if we're going to win globally. And we must make these things measurable, not just token little bits here and there. And I want to challenge you to think about working with SIP. SIP is established as an international center, and we are working globally, but we cannot do it ourselves. And we admit that. And we want also to harness the energy and knowledge that exists even in this room today. SIP has developed, as a board, we have established a public-private policy, partnership policy, that allows the private sector to work with SIP in developing countries. We already have 20+ such agreements in place, but we need more. And we're ready to work with you, to affiliate with you folks who are ready and think about the social responsibility we have as corporate citizens to help make this happen in a more aggressive and real way in the developing world. There are many opportunities. Funding for research and for development activities especially. Genetics, development projects like I showed you Papandina, or what, there's many options we have. Seed production like aeroponics, which I showed you. There's education, scholarships, training for national scientists, extension workers, for farmers in country. My challenge is that you would talk to us at SIP and work with us, because we have the experience, we have the network around the world, and in this way we can do it in a coordinated way, in a way that would truly benefit those. I heard some comments about saying, well, it's a waste of time working with NGOs, or it's not the right way to do things. I believe working with SIP is the right way to do things because we have the scientific credibility and the experience with people on the ground in the various parts of our developing world. So please think about that as we go away from this meeting of winning globally. We need to stabilize rural communities. We need to think about the value chain and help farmers become more profitable. We need to think about seed production. We need to think about new varieties and how to promote and encourage their adoption, whether it's through conventional breeding or through GM technology. I think we're very close to that being acceptable in many parts of our developing world. And my challenge to you tonight is this. We need to support the small farmers as they work together in their communities to provide for their communities. SIP is there, and SIP would openly welcome to work with each one of you as you think about your corporate social responsibility. Thank you very much.